The Rotoworld football crew is here in Studio 2 to recap the 2019-2020 season. Rather than do that, why don't we spin it forward? There's so many more months of news, content, items coming up that, guys, why not try to prepare everyone for the biggest offseason storylines coming up? Ian Hartitz, kick us off.
Why not? I think the main one, where are some of these veteran QBs going? Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Drew Brees. All these guys are free agents right now. I think we can all agree, Brees, Eli, probably nothing too crazy happening there, but there's been enough smoke with this fire that I think there is a chance Brady and Rivers could go somewhere. And there's some interesting options. I don't think they're washed just yet, but I don't know. Could they perhaps switch spots? Brady in LA? What do you guys think?
I know you want to discuss the veteran quarterbacks, but I also think it's interesting because the secondary guys like Marcus Mariota, Andy Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater, Taysom Hill, those guys actually matter and could be in a position to start elsewhere as well. So I would say just the entire quarterback landscape, not just veterans, are super interesting.
Well, I think we're getting to this point with Tom Brady and Phillip Rivers where we actually wonder if they are good enough to help teams that they might move on to right now. Like, are they better off sticking in the situation in Tom Brady's case that he's already in, or moving on and hopefully improving that team? I'm not sure if there's an easy answer for that question right now, Pat.
Brady's better off staying put, but I don't know if he thinks that. I don't know if Bill Belichick thinks that. I think we probably all think that. At age 43, can he really reconstruct what he has spent 2 decades building in New England? Can he do it in one offseason? Maybe he can, but we're talking about you're the macro storyline is the quarterback's changing. The micro, in that, is Brady. That is the real drama there. Phillip Rivers, whatever. That's Phillip Rivers. Drew Brees is going to re-sign with the Saints, but in Tom Brady, this is the biggest quarterback drama since at least Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
And not as big as Peyton Manning since we know he's not in his prime, but
it's odd because I would even say in the 2017 season, 2018 season, Tom Brady was playing winnable football. And now we've seen it the age hit a cliff. The same thing with Phillip Rivers as well.
But it's so weird. There's another micro storyline within there. How much of it is his age, and how much of it was his worst supporting cast in years?
We did not put enough into him losing Rob Gronkowski, the greatest tight end to ever play. We just assumed, again, Brady would make do. Ultimately, they finished 21st in yards per play. It was the worst since 2002.
Yeah, if you're 43 and you struggle for any reason, though, they're going to think it's your age, even if it's not your age.
Pat, they're not 43, but we also have players like Ben Roethlisberger getting up there in age, Aaron Rodgers getting up there in age. What do you see for them this offseason?
Yeah, I was going to tie my storyline into Ian's. Is we're entering the changing of the guard at quarterbacks. Not even the guys who are the free agents, or Ben Roethlisberger not just getting up in age, coming off major injury. Aaron Rodgers appearing, I don't know, it's weird. Was he diminished this year? His arm talent is still jaw-dropping, but Aaron Rodgers did not seem to be Aaron Rodgers. Horrible supporting cast. Even Matt Ryan, after his high ankle sprain, could essentially barely move. His lack of mobility in the second half of the season was scary.
Concerning.
I'm assuming it was just the injury. Even Cam Newton, it's a time of change at the quarterback that has been so stable for really the past 10 years.
Well, the Steelers tried to have a changing of the guard moment, but that obviously failed with Mason Rudolph.
They tried to have 2 changing of
the guard. they at least attempted to move on from Roethlisberger, but they're clearly not in place to do that just yet.
I don't know if they attempted to move on from Roethlisberger.
They attempted to have a backup plan, and that backup plan failed miserably.
Yeah, that's a perfect way of putting it.
It's odd because the Steelers have tried for years to have a viable backup quarterback. I mean, you drafted Josh Dobbs. You had Landry Jones was his name, and Landry Jones is now a member of the XFL. I'm sure Ian's his biggest fan.
Let's go.
And then Mason Rudolph, obviously, in round 3. And these are just, it shows you how difficult it is to move on from Super Bowl winning types at quarterback. But I'm with you, and going back to the initial topic of this conversation, we might see more of that in the next 2 or 3 off seasons than we've seen the last 5 combined.
Even Matt LaFleur mentioned drafting a quarterback because you can never have too many of that particular position, players that are good at quarterback on your team. And remember, Rodgers was drafted when Favre was 35. Rodgers is 35 now. So it does make sense to start putting those guys in place, even if it's what we rarely see now, 1 year of just bench development, and that's it.
John Daigle, what about you? What are you looking forward to this offseason?
The Chargers don't grab headlines. I completely understand that.
They grab the wrong headlines.
One of the most underwhelming teams in the league. But whatever happens with their organization this year, genuinely shakes up the entire fantasy landscape. Wherever Phillip Rivers goes, if he comes back, how does that affect him? His 23 touchdown passes were his fewest since 2007. He started the last 14 seasons for the Chargers. A changing of the guard moment that has to happen, whether it's Tyrod Taylor, Easton Stick, a rookie they draft, whatever the case. And wherever Rivers goes, if it's somewhere like the Bucs, which is rumored, I don't think that's the case, but if he goes to the Bucs, that drastically changes Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's trajectory as well. Austin Eckler, the number one running back, number one fantasy player the first 5 weeks. I imagine the Chargers match his offer. He's a restricted free agent, but it's the Chargers. Who knows what they do? Melvin Gordon likely walks, but where does he go? And is it a timeshare? That could obviously change other situations as well. And then Hunter Henry, the number 5 tight end in fantasy from week 6 on, receiving threat, but 3 serious injuries in as many years. So wherever these pieces go, like change up 6 different squads and lead us drafting differently this offseason.
It's an interesting landscape in LA, even if some of those guys leave. You still have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry if he stays, one of those running backs. I mean, those are some solid skill position players. It just kind of strikes me as a 2019 Browns type situation where, yeah, you got some nice flair, things look nice on the surface, but O-line remains pretty weak. It's still the Chargers and one of the most dysfunctional organizations in the league. Even if they do upgrade a little bit at quarterback, because Rivers did seem pretty washed last year, I don't know if we should expect that much from the Chargers in 2020.
We will have another video breaking down quarterback matchmaking, and I'm sure we'll hit on the Chargers there. And I have to say it. I mean, it's odd because every year it seems like the Chargers are one of these teams that people buy into in the offseason heading into the year.
Well, their talent.
Positive regression might happen where they didn't match what they could have done the previous year.
They might stop allowing a game-ending touchdown every
Right,
week.
but I don't think that's the case heading into 2020. Obviously, there's so much more time to go into, and they do have some nice pieces, but this is a complete, like Daigle mentioned, such a complete restructure when you look at the running backs and how dynamic Eckler and Gordon were and Rivers, and it's going to be a totally new identity for them.
Yeah, you left off the fact they're moving into an actual football stadium this year, so that'll be big for them. But I think if Rivers goes, I think Eckler's probably, if Rivers is really going to match, will probably be a big offer for what they view as a 1B back in Austin Eckler. So if Rivers is gone, I think Eckler could be gone. The Hunter Henry one really snuck up on people, I think. It's hard to realize he's a free agent because it seems like he just got in the league, but he's been hurt so much. Yeah. So I think they could be engaging in a full-scale reboot in offense, basically, in my opinion.
And what's funny is that the defense is in place. Whoever's under center, has a terrific lead and advantage because that defense can win games.
Just stay healthy for once.
But is it, who is it, though? That's the question.
Daigle, if we're going to focus on one team in this discussion, to me, we have to focus on the most underperforming team of 2019, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. We know that they have made a head coaching change going from Jason Garrett to Mike McCarthy.
I'm inspired.
Even though it seems like Mr. Jones had to force that upon himself. But look, can they keep the band together? Because this is a team that has Dak Prescott as a free agent, Amari Cooper as a free agent. There are other big contracts like Byron Jones, Robert Quinn, who had 11 and a half
Michael Bennett
sacks.
as well, who they traded for and was terrific after the trade deadline.
Jason Witten, 9 yards per catch.
And look, they finished the season 8-8. And you look at their point differential. It was plus 113 on the season.
It's the third best in the NFC, I believe.
It's better than 6 playoff teams this year. But sometimes, and if we can boil it down to the coaching decisions, I think that's fair. I also wonder if we overrate the talent a little bit. But now, with how many changes they're going to face this offseason, I do wonder if this is going to be the same team that takes the field, or even as good of a team in 2020 if they've already missed the window possibly to win it all.
Well, it's not a good offseason for them to have their franchise quarterback and a true number one receiver up for new deals, since they've already invested so much in the running back position, so much at the skill positions, just via, the least important position of the big three. And they have to tag Dak Prescott. I think they're in real danger of losing Amari Cooper.
I agree.
I guess maybe they could transition tag him. They could get really creative, but they haven't left themselves much room for flexibility. And they have the new coach. There's a lot of pieces and more pieces in flux than you might realize.
And Dak has all the leverage in that situation.
He does. He has
I know that the organization thinks otherwise, but Dak is the one that has all the money in his control.
And a new coach who basically his selling point is I reinvented myself. You know? And so that's always a difficult situation to buy into.
I agree with you to a certain extent. And we have another video that will go much more in depth on Mike McCarthy and other coaches. Mike McCarthy, not McCarthy. Who the hell is that? But I will say, Jason Garrett, for all his flaws, like the one biggest one was his defeated streak. He never once gave the Cowboys an X's and O's advantage, whereas McCarthy at least gives them that a handful of times. Not all the time, but a few opportunities.
We'll see.
Well, the other thing that we got to remember with this, I think the offense will be above average at a minimal. The defense.
It'd be embarrassing if it wasn't.
Fair. The defense, though, they look like they're on the verge of becoming a truly elite unit in 2018. They took a big step back last year. Byron Jones, another guy up for a contract. They have DeMarcus Lawrence, only had Robert Quinn on a one-year deal. Who knows what Randy Gregory's doing if we could see that guy again. And the big selling point for that defense was Leighton Vander Esch, who now has this weird neck injury. Who knows if
It
that's
sounds like career-threatening as well. Yeah,
not good. And Jalen Smith, who took a step back, and they're going to have to think about paying him soon, too. So
they had a 7-game turnover-less streak where they didn't get one turnover.
We've been talking about adding a safety for years. There's just a whole lot of question marks in that defense.
Something else for the Cowboys might make them hard for them to improve. It kind of underreported storyline how easy the schedule was last year. They had the AFC East. They got the Jets and Sam Darnold came back, but they had a really down NFC East. They had a really soft out of conference division, and they just didn't take advantage.
That's why I and we'll have months and months to talk about this. But this is why I kind of like already looking ahead, assuming they bring back these pieces, which is not a guarantee as well. The Cowboys in fantasy for next year, because that defense is going to be exponentially worse. The fact they pretty much can't bring back Byron Jones because they have to bring Dak and Amari back makes Jeff Heath your best defensive player, and it's going to be an absolute mess.
And your best fill-in kicker.
We know in the season they almost traded for Jamal Adams, so that's another storyline to watch for.
And I'm still convinced that would have helped a lot.
That'll be revisited this offseason.
Yeah.
Well, we have plenty of time to revisit that. And by the way, for everyone out there, for more videos, if you want to check those out, go over to Rotoworld.com and NBCSports.com.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.